Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle Tech Talk series. Today we'll be discussing some of the technical features of our web filter application and also introducing our newest app, Web Monitor. My name is Shannon Miles and I'm part of the product marketing team here and I'll be your host today. I have with us John Coffin, who's our Director of QA, and he'll be demonstrating these applications and of course answering questions along the way. We also have some team members on hand to help answer questions. Next slide, John. Thank you. So just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If you have any audio issues, please be sure you're selecting the correct audio preference on the right-hand side. If you do select to use a phone, you will need to dial in and use the access code provided. As I mentioned, we do have a questions panel on the right-hand side, so any questions that you have throughout this demonstration, please just submit those and we'll be happy to answer them. Little reminder, this webinar is being recorded, so you'll have the option to rewatch or revisit or share the recording with your colleagues. And of course, we'll be answering questions, but if we don't get to them, you can always submit your questions through sales@untangle.com or support@untangle.com. Now, before I move on and pass this over to John, I just want to reiterate that this is a highly technical webinar. So if you're not familiar with Untangle, our solutions, or networking concepts, then I would suggest you take a look at our 101 webinar series that are more higher level topics. And you can always find a list of all of our webinars as well as past webinars on our website. And with that, I'll pass it over to John.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks everyone for joining us. I know the web filter has been around quite a while, but there's still a lot of new features, and we just introduced our new Web Monitor application. So there's been a little confusion. So Web Monitor is our replacement for Web Filter Lite, and there's some differences between the two. So some of the differences is that some of the identical things is that the categorizations are exactly the same. We actually use the same database engine and retrieval method to classify traffic that goes across either one of those apps. With that said, obviously there's really not much reason to run both Web Filter and Web Monitor. In fact, we highly recommend that you don't run both because they will cause problems on the back end since they're using the same engine for classifying that traffic. Web Monitor only has flag, while Web Filter has flag and block. So Web Monitor will not block sites, just one thing to know. And some advanced features like Google domain control and things like that are not available on Web Monitor. So to this fact, 12.2.1 is the last version that we're going to have Web Filter Lite on. So why are we getting rid of this product? It was part of our free package, and it had two major flaws. One, the categorization database was quite old. It probably hasn't been updated in several years. There's a lot of work to categorizing sites, and sites are constantly changing. Domain names are sold and bought by someone new, and and then that in turn their content can be different, which causes the categorization to be off. And that also made most websites as uncategorized, which didn't really help very many people, and it did cause problems. The other thing that is really crucial is it does not handle encrypted traffic. HTTPS traffic is not even seen by Web Filter Lite. So if you ever look at your network traffic, you'll see of your web traffic, I would say more than half is now HTTPS, which is encrypted. So you were literally losing more and more of your traffic to not being scanned by using Web Filter Lite. So while you can't block with Web Monitor, you can determine what kind of traffic and maybe have some kind of company policy on what to do when certain sites are being reached. Some of the reasons for using Web Filter to monitor and block inappropriate sites, whether it's business or you're at home or in a school setting, anytime you want some content scanned and categorized so you're blocking the right amount of content for your particular application. It also adds a level of protection against malware sites. Many websites are, either have been compromised or they're purposely set up to pass out malware. Those are definitely categorized in web filter and will prevent someone from going there. There's been cases where even advertising on a website is passing out malware, and those are blocked independently of the website. One thing I just missed was we do comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act, so we do qualify for several programs out there for schools and public areas. Our web filter is powered by Zivolo. They're the member of the IAWF, which also keeps up their certificate of protection for children and other purposes for qualifications. Excuse me. Untangle also has provided compliance information for the UK Safer Internet Center. That's up on our website. So if you need that information for qualifying Untangle for your particular application, we definitely have documents out there that will help you for your certification. Next slide here. So web filter and web monitor features, over 150 categories and 450 million categorization sites in 2 different languages. Just huge amounts of data. I rarely see any site that's not categorized. That's a real-time classification. It's constantly updated. And you can actually, if you see a site that's not properly classified, you can actually submit your suggestions for classifying it correctly. That just improves the accuracy of the database. We use a lot of proprietary learning machines to classify that data and make it more accurate. And we also provide SSL encryption scanning of encrypted sites with HTTPS. Let me show you how that works. So what we'll here is we have our Untangle. We'll go ahead and install our web filter. And here is the list of categories. So I can go through, I don't need to know exactly what website to block. I can just block it based on categorizations. For example, if I'm in a business and I want to cut down on any kind of streaming video, I can just select the whole bracket and that will block all the websites, for example, YouTube and such, all in one swipe. I can also block sites independently. Like for example, let's say I want to block CNN.com, but I want people to go to other websites. I'll just go ahead and enter that right here. And now CNN.com is blocked, but the other news sites are not. There's also variations I can do on this. For example, let's say I blocked streaming video, but on the other hand, I want people to go for the educational videos that I have on YouTube. Excuse me. I can just go ahead and put YouTube. And now they'll be able to get to YouTube, but not other streaming websites. Just so you know the whole hierarchy, a pass site will always overcome any categorization blocks. Also, pass sites will oversee any block sites. So it's kind of like just a hierarchy of levels at what it comes. So if something is in a pass site, it will get passed. the last level is also the category. So if the website is not in a pass site, it's not in a block site, but it's in a category, it's also blocked. I can also bypass certain clients. If I have certain devices that need free passage through the web filter. Let's say I have a web server that does some kind of constant updates from the internet, and I don't want it blocked. I can go ahead and add that IP of my web server, and at that point I will that web server will not have any kind of it will still be scanned, but it will never block based on any of the categories or block sites that I've entered. So it makes it pretty easy to allow for example, a CEO says, I don't want any blocking on my browsing. You can go ahead and add him to this, add the IP of his computer, and now he will not be blocked from any website at all. You can also, if you want to get really fancy, you can also create rules, special type rules for those conditions. Let's say, I want, a certain country blocked. Let's say I don't want anyone going to servers, and let's say we will select Spain, for example. We don't want any traffic going there. I can go ahead and block that traffic going to Spain, and now I've blocked all traffic for that. So you can create some pretty creative rules on those, on how to block and so forth. Those also are scanned. That traffic is also scanned if it's HTTPS. The way it works is that we can, on most browsers, they have something what's called an SNI, which is the server name is actually passed in the clear on encrypted traffic for this purpose. And if that domain is in a particular site, that domain is a site that I'm blocking, it will go ahead and block that traffic even though the traffic is encrypted. It makes it pretty useful, and that's by default. So this process traffic by SNI will provide that extra level of traffic. Now, if you want to block websites based on the sub-URLs of them, for example, I want people to go to CNN headline news, but I don't want them to go to any other parts of CNN. What I'll have to do is, in those cases, is start doing SSL inspection of the website, and that requires installing SSL Inspector. And there's a whole video on this because it is a little more involved. And then what I'll do is configure it, and then I'll download my root certificate and install it on all the machines behind my Untangle. So I can provide, so I can have detailed descriptions of the traffic going across there that is encrypted.
Hey John, I have a question that just popped up about SSL. Someone is asking if we have any best practices for having SSL certificate installed on client computers, that in a BYOD environment it's a little difficult to get people to install the certificate themselves.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways you can do this. In some ways you can do, if it's like phones and so forth, you can set up guest internet on wireless internet. So they're actually in a different rack. You can create a different rack and maybe only do, you could create a guest rack and do only regular without SSL inspection. The other possibilities are to use captive portal. And let me just get a little sidetracked here, but it's definitely an important part. And what you can do is we can actually tell, and let's go to our page, and we're going to do a, so what we can do is we can do a check for the SSL certificate, and actually provide a link so they can download that directly to their device that they bring in. So they can do, you can do inspection on even devices that are brought into the office. And we have installers for all the major OSs, so it makes it pretty easy to install for someone. But you do have to work a little bit with the captive portal page to do that. So really, there's two options to capture, just in summary, you know, devices brought into the office. Either you can create a separate rack and put that traffic on that separate rack where you don't do SSL inspection, or you can use captive portal to check to see if they have the certificate and tell them that they need to install this particular certificate and provide a URL in the text message. So going back to our web filter, some of the other things you can do, for example, let's say I don't know what category a particular website is at that I want to block, and I really want to block the entire category of those websites. So let's say I go in and I want to block all websites that are similar to YouTube. So I'll go ahead and type YouTube into my site lookup, and we'll do a search, and it says streaming, download, and video. So great. So now all I do is go down to streaming video and check that box, and I'll block all sites like that. The other thing to do is you have a client and they say, oh, so-and-so site is being blocked. And you're not sure why it's blocked and so forth. The other thing you do is go in and say, you know, again, do the search, and then you can see which one it's blocked, and then make changes based on that change. So the other things you can do, for example, let's say there's been a change and some site is not categorized properly. You're looking at the event log, you're seeing the sites that it's going to, and it's categorizing very odd. So the other thing you can do is, for example, just say cnn.com, and it's in the streaming. So I say, well, that's not really a streaming site. So I'm going to say it's a news site, and you can pick from any of their categories. And so I'm going to suggest that. And sometimes their server is not taking suggestions at the moment, but you can just try that a little later. But usually you can submit a site and go directly on that. Some of the other advanced processes on here. So again, by default, we do process encrypted traffic by their SNI. If the SNI is not available, what we'll do is look at the host name in the certificate, because the certificate's sent in the clear. So we can determine that, especially on browsers. One of the few browsers is older versions of IE don't provide SNI. For example, if you still have Windows XP machines on your network, the browser, which is IE8, which is the last one provided for Windows XP, does not provide SNI. In those cases, what we'll do is look at the certificate and figure out the host name from that. This is a little more involved. You can also, if you don't get any of that information, you can also process it by IP. I generally don't recommend using this option if you, unless you have a very specific case where you want to use this, because in today's environment, most web services are based on large virtual type web services, and where a service will provide content to multiple websites. So they're called CDNs, which is a content thing. They all will have the same IP address, so that makes it very hard to categorize. So this option is really there just for very specific cases, like when you're really wanting to lock down your network and you have very strict controls on what sites they can go to. Enforce safe search on popular engines. We actually add a tag to all the URLs going out to give it the safe search. Currently this is set for moderate search, safe search. In the upcoming 13 that will be changed to strict. So provide very strict content filtering based on search engines, and that'll be going forward soon. Block QID, it's really it's a protocol only used by Google. They use it to stream content very quickly with very little overhead using UDP. That is not blocked by most filtering systems. We actually added this to be able to detect that content and block that directly. So for us, it really looks like a normal web request, but we're able to block that content. Cases where this is used, for example, if you're doing a search on Google Images, all that content is sent by the QUIC. And for most web filtering, it won't block that. But if you have this checkbox, we will look at that content and block it directly based on your rules. Block pages by IP only. Some websites get around some of the categorization blocking by using the IPs. One way to get stop that is actually block by IP. Again, make sure you have a specific use for this. This can actually cause you problems if you check this. But if you see in your reports that people are constantly going to websites with just an IP address, definitely check this, and that will help curtail that traffic on your network. Passive refer pass. Now this is very common now. So websites are generally not all listed on one web server. So for example, you go, again, I'm using my CNN.com. If you go to CNN.com, the content that you see on the page there is not all coming from that web server that has the IP address of CNN.com. They're pulling stuff from probably Akamai, which has their content area, which is a different IP. They're pulling data maybe off their Twitter account and so forth. So that page is actually a group accumulation of multiple IP content. That IP content, some of those areas will be blocked, but in general you want that particular page not blocked. So what this does, it looks to see what referred that content and what page that content is going to, and if that parent page is unblocked, it will unblock the referred sites. So it makes it a much better experience, especially today where content and page comes from so many sources. Restricting Google applications is an interesting option. So in this case, let's say you're a school or you're a business and your email, your file sharing, all your spreadsheets, all are on Google services, whether it's Gmail, whether it's Google Docs, and so forth. But you also want to restrict people from going to Google for doing searches, or maybe using other services like play.untangle.com. play.google.com. In those cases, what I would do is put in my domain, and you can have multiple domains in here. And this will do, the only Google services that they can reach are the ones connected to your domain that you are using on Google services. So it makes it a good way to restrict it. There's excellent ways to restrict that and make it where only your content can be viewed on Google, and they can't go to other sites. For example, if you add this, they can get their corporate email that's on Gmail, but they can't get their private email on using the web browser when you have this selection. The unblock, as some of you know, you can temporarily unblock sites. None means there won't be a, for example, if I go to playboy.com, I get my block site, and since I have my particular settings set to temporary, I have a button here that allows me to unblock this. And this is really useful if you want to do content filtering, but maybe for like executives, which can override it. You can have this unblocked for now, and that way they don't have to contact the IT support to get the site unblocked, and there's a delay, and then they have to go back to it. This allows them to go ahead and unblock that. That is shown in the reports that a site was unblocked by the user. So it is tracked and so forth. You can make it a little more complex and say, I want them to have a password, to unblock this. So I can say, the password will be unblocked. So in that case, they'll be asked for the password to unblock the site. This kind of gives a better two-level. You can pass out the password to a few people and not, but still have it available for everyone. So like a manager can go in and put their password in for an employee because he needs to go to that site for some work he needs to do. And again, they don't have to rely on the IT services to go in and unblock that for that employee. The permanent and global, which means if someone unblocks a site, make that available to everybody that's on the network behind the Untangle. So that will go ahead and add that to a permanent pass list. And again, that allows you to do it with a password or just without a password. But just remember that will make that particular site that was unblocked available to all the people behind the network. In future versions, we're actually going to, for the temporary is actually 60 minutes. We're going to make that field available for you so you can actually turn down or increase that number. Let's say you only want to make it available for 10 minutes. So temporary right now is 60 minutes and it's not configurable. Future version will have where you can configure the amount of time. The last option here is clearing the URL cache. Now this URL cache is if you consistently go to one website, for example, CNN.com, we won't look up that website again for a while because we already know the results and what category that site is in. So we keep a cache locally to keep down the traffic. For some reason, if you like recategorize a site and you've been told it's been recategorized and you're still seeing the block page even though you don't have that new category blocked, you can go ahead and clear the cache and you'll get a new download of all the URLs that you've previously gone to. Now remember that you don't want to use this on a regular basis because it does increase the network load because again, it doesn't have a list of already defined URLs, so it's going to have to download those URLs again. Just a quick thing on reporting. I'll take a look at my own reporting. Again, you get to see pretty much the web usage. I mean, this is what you're going to expect. You know, pretty much towards the end of the day or midday, you're at home, you're going to see a lot more web browsing. You can see the categories, and this is again based on the Zivalo, which categories you've selected and what sites they're going to. You can see the blocks. Obviously, I'm blocking online ads. You can, you know, I've made my own custom reports here. Like I want to see who is going to social websites and so forth. This will give you an idea which users are going to social websites. It's just a custom test. I just did the top usernames and then added the social media. I'll show you that real quick here. So some of the other reports you can also get, again, I was talking about the unblock button. This is going to list all the unblock events. Anyone that clicked on that button, it will list what IP address and they have username connected to it, and then also what the URL is that was unblocked. Make it quite useful. Yes?
There's one question that just popped up about this unblock, asking, does global unblock apply to all racks?
Global global unblock applies only to the specific web filter. So in this case, let me go back here. So in this example, so I have two racks here. So this is one rack and this is the other rack. So these two web filters are actually the same one. So if someone were to unblock it on, let's say, the default rack, the executive rack would also get that unblock feature. Now, on the other hand, if I go ahead and install a special, specific web filter for the executive rack, if the executive were to unblock this, only this web filter would have that global unblock. Those that have on the default policy would not have that same site bypassed. I hope that helps. Let's take a look real quick. So we kind of went over the features and the block categories, the advanced options. Again, for troubleshooting, I can't say more. Session viewer is so important. For example, I can just look at my own sessions here, and then I can go ahead and see any kind of categories that I'm going to, and so forth. I also use the reports quite a bit. So if I go to web filter, I can look at my events. In fact, I just want to see all web events. I can go ahead and take a look at what hosts I'm going to, what sites I'm seeing, and then see if I want to block that. And then I can also see the category. Like let's say, you know, I want to start blocking miscellaneous because there's too much traffic going to miscellaneous, and I don't understand why they're going to these sites. You know, especially if you're in a business. If they're not business related, you might think, oh, I might block this particular category, and then go into your configuration and block that. Or, you know, if you're if a site was blocked and the user doesn't tell you what site, because for example, when you do get the block site, it does tell you what category you're in. So if your user wants something wants it unblocked, it might be good for them to send you the reason for the configuration. There's also in the block page, one thing I didn't mention is that it allows you to put your contact information in there. In this case, I have it, and then it actually opens up an email address if you have an email client put in there. So it makes it pretty useful if they want to tell you, like, hey, I really need to get the site, they can just email you and work that way. Again, reports is really useful for diagnosing any kind of problems and then looking at if there's any increased amount of web traffic and so forth. Some of the other thing is too, you can actually see that in one of the widgets. This is hourly based, and you can see what content is going to. And that's about it. If there's not any other questions I could cover.
No, not right now. We're pretty much handling it on our end. A lot of questions about SSL Inspector, which I know John mentioned, but we actually have a specific SSL Inspector webinar that we did a while ago, so you can check that out on our YouTube page. There is some questions, let's see, that just are coming in.
Yeah, I highly recommend people who want to use SSL Inspector, they do review that that webinar we had. It's on YouTube. That goes into specifics, how to install it, how to deploy it, different ways you can deploy it. It's really valuable if you want to do very in-depth web filtering. So I do recommend reviewing that. It is pretty complex and really more than we could cover in this particular webinar.
All right. Can you show, John, really quickly, if you go to our website, how people can get to the YouTube channel?
Sure.
So if you go to our website, untangle.com, and you click on the Resources tab, you see a link for webinars and videos. So you click that, and then these are our list of upcoming ones that you can register for, but if you scroll down, you can see the ones that we've done before. So if you click any of these, it'll take you straight to the YouTube channel, and then you can, at the bottom you can see, the SSL Inspector, we did that last year, and then the link at the bottom where it says visit us on Untangle YouTube channel, that takes you to the main page. So you can search for any application or, topic that you want and see if we've done it. If you have any specific topics or topics that we haven't done, please send them to us and let us know. We're glad to take that into consideration. Let's see, there are some questions that came up. Let's see. Can web filter be tied to Active Directory to automatically report username?
Yes. The usernames, I can show you that real quick. So if you have Active Directory installed, it would automatically assign that particular username to the traffic going across the area. So in this case, I've actually manually, you can also do it with local directories and assign it by IP address. So that's how I get, if you look at where we are, top, why am I missing it? Looking for top users. Oh, here we go. That's not the one I'm looking for. Oh, didn't scroll down enough. Sorry about that. So right here, I've actually manually configured this, but if you use Directory Connector, it would show the AD name connected with the session, and you can actually see that. Also in all events, if you have the username configured, you can actually see their AD login on the sessions on that, so it can be directly connected to that. And again, that works with AD connector, Directory Connector, any of them, which is either using local directories and you have to manually assign it by IP, or AD Connector, you can do it by login when they log into their Windows box, or you can use radius configuration so they can sign in with like Captive Portal and so forth.
All right, John, sorry, a couple other questions are coming in. Is it good to inspect all SSL sites?
It is. I mean, it depends on the level of inspection that you want. If you're only interested in the type of website it is, there's really no reason to do SSL inspection because you're going to know the domain name for it. So, but if you're trying to lock down your website, your location, where you want to be specific on what parts of the website they go to. For example, a lot of people only want specific parts of YouTube exposed to their website. They're going to have SSL inspection. So it's all based on how much insight you want into your traffic. If you want anything beyond the domain name of the traffic, you're really going to have to get SSL inspection. So it's really, we tailored this so you can kind of turn the knob, to high inspection or low inspection. Of course, with high inspection becomes more IT work. So there is a trade-off with it. You have to install the certificates on every device behind there. You have to manage it, check to see if devices don't have the certificate installed, using Captive Portal. So there's a little bit more work. So it depends on the requirements of your particular network on how much insight you want into the traffic.
Okay, thanks. Another couple questions that are coming in. If there's any internet speed effects, having web filter or web monitor scanning all the traffic, stating a number of end users have been complaining of slow open sites.
No, it all depends on your DNS lookups. The way it works, the site lookup categorization is a DNS-based lookup. So if you're having issues with DNS, again, that is going to affect your web traffic. But if you have, fairly good response from your DNS servers, you should not have any problems. Very, very little overhead on web monitor. SSL inspection is a little more because we have to actually create a certificate on the fly. So if you are using SSL Inspector, there is a bit of an overhead, but it's really dependent on your CPU that you have on your Untangle. But for normal traffic, for web filtering, you should see relatively no delay at all. I honestly, it's almost hard to measure any kind of differences using web filter versus not having any traffic filtered.
Great, thanks, John. So I know we're running out of time, so just want to wrap this up. You're on our slide here. If you have any issues or need help with your installation or configuration, we do offer professional services. Our team is very well in depth in knowing how Untangle works and how it can be utilized for your specific environment. So please look into that if you are needing assistance. And as always, you can contact sales with any other issues, that you have, as well as support for any technical issues. As I mentioned, support at untangle.com, sales at untangle.com. We have a couple resources available if you're not aware. We have our wiki, which is our technical documentation. You can find that on our website under resources as well. We also have our forums, which is our community. So you can go on there, post any question you want, see if someone else has had a similar feature request or configuration issue, and see if it's been answered. Our engineers are on there 24/7 basically, answering questions and monitoring that. So that's always an option for you. Our next webinar is coming up next week. We have, if you're a school or a library, E-rate funding has been open for 2017. If you don't know what that is, join the webinar. It is required. Schools and libraries can receive E-rate funds if they are SIPA compliant. So as John mentioned, Untangle helps with that. So please join us for that. And then in May, we have one for setting up NG Firewall as a virtual machine. We know a lot of our users use Untangle in a virtual machine environment, so we have added this webinar to help kind of go over that to make sure that it's set up correctly. And keep an eye out for upcoming any new topics. Again, as I said, if you have any topics that we haven't covered, please just let us know and we can see if that's something that we'll do. Thank you, John, for the great demo. If we didn't get to your question, please again just ask us at support@untangle.com or sales@untangle.com. All right, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.